Ant-Man Moto here. Peace. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Let me turn your attention to the MT09. This is as it sits today in its almost fully modified state for yours truly, Ant-Man Moto. I've done a series of mods that make this bike a good fit for me. And what I recommend you do with any bike that you buy is first ask yourself, how do you want to ride it? Do you want to ride it in a straight line at high speed? Do you want to tour on it and see the country? Do you want to do stunt riding and tricks? Or do you want to ride twisties that are tight and technical, or twisties that are big, fast sweepers? There's a few different things you have to ask yourself when it comes to how you want to ride your bike that will tell you how you're going to modify your bike. But I modified this bike in a way that fits my riding. Now, how do I ride? I like to ride twisty, technical roads. I love it. The twistier, the better. They're not necessarily high-speed twisties like out in California, but more like, tight twisties like the Dragon, the tail of the Dragon, or some of our roads here in North Georgia. So for that, I need good low to mid-range punch out of a bike, and I need it to handle well. I need it to turn in well. I need it to feel stable in turns, and I need it to, be responsive and kind of put on the line I want it, and then have it just kind of do the rest of the work. So this bike is really set up for that. I got the SP because it has the Olin suspension. It comes with that, and that was key in my decision on getting the SP versus the MT09. The suspension is already up to snuff for the type of riding that I do. I'm about a 190-pound guy. I range between 180 and 190. So, the suspension is sprung for my weight already. So I didn't have to really do anything with the suspension when I bought it. Now, as you will see right below that piggyback shock, or that reservoir Olin shock, is a rear set. And those are Woodcraft rear sets. And I got those because the ground clearance was very poor on this bike. Even with the ability to move it from a lower position here to an upper position, you can see there's two holes here, but there's also two holes in the frame. So you can move the original rear sets up or down. And I had moved mine all the way up and still grounded out on one of our favorite roads up here, 348 Richard Russell. But it was enough to make me know immediately I needed to get rear sets. So that was the first mod that I did to this bike, was I got the Woodcraft rear set. Made in America, high quality, and easy to buy replacement parts, and they're just the standard as far as I'm concerned for rear sets, especially if you're going to do track riding. It came with shorty levers, which I don't always prefer shorty levers. I don't know. I like my fingers, especially on the brake lever, to have plenty of lever to grab regardless of the position that my hand is in. And I find with shorty levers, I kind of have to have my fingers in the perfect position to get some brake, when I need it. And I don't necessarily care for that, but they're Evotech, very high quality shorty levers. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to adapt my riding to them. So far, it's been okay. It's like I said, it's not what I prefer, but it's working so far. Another mod that I just did, I'm very happy to say that I did, was I got the LeoVince race exhaust, as you can see here. And this exhaust is about, as far as riding goes, it's about 2 hours old. I put it on over the series of days late at night after the Olympics, and the first night I dropped the old exhaust. Ooh, I'm glad I looked at this because my reservoir cap is off. Look at that. That is not supposed to be like that. That's supposed to be on. Thank you, YouTube audience, for forcing me to see that. I didn't lose any coolant out of it, thankfully. But yeah, this exhaust, I dropped the old exhaust on day 1, and then day 2 I mocked this exhaust up and tried to figure out how the pipes went on into the collector and all that, and you know how the flanges worked. And then day 3 I actually mounted the headers, and then day 4 I mounted the end can and tightened everything up. So it took me like 4 days, about 30 minutes a day to get it done. So I'd say probably about 2 hours total it took me to do the job. Putting the new pipe on is not necessarily easy. It's kind of like a puzzle, and you have to make sure all the parts are aligned properly, and the springs, those loops for the springs, they're all in a very specific place for a reason. And when you're looking at the pipes, it doesn't seem like they are, but they really are, and all the springs fit perfectly. LeoVince does a great job with just getting everything to fit and finish very nicely for you. So be patient with the exhaust. It takes a little bit, but if I can do it, you can most likely do it. So along with the LV exhaust came a ECU flash from V Cycle Nut. And V Cycle Nut is a gentleman by the name of David, who's based out of Washington, the state of Washington, up in the northwest corner of the country. And he basically, you send him your ECU, you kind of tell him a little bit about, you know, like what you want or what kind of riding you do, and he has a flash to fit you. Now, this is going to be a stage 2 setup, which means that the air box is going to be altered a bit with a DNA air filter, but that filter has not come in yet. Now, that's not a problem with this flash, because David says that you can run his stage 2 flash on a stock bike because the stock pipe doesn't have an exhaust valve in it, and because of that, you can actually run his flashes on a stock piped bike. As you could see, mine doesn't have the stock pipe, but he was like, it's not going to hurt anything to run it flash for stage 2 and just run it with the stock air box until the lid comes in. So that is where I'm at right now. The lid should be in a couple of days. And I will tell you that the stage 2 tune gives you a lot. It gives you about 8 more horsepower in the meaty street part of the power band. Now, you lose about 1 or 2 horsepower on the very top end, but that doesn't matter to me because I don't have this bike for top end. I just have it for the twisties, and that punch down low is what I'm looking for. So over a stock bike, this thing towers over a stock bike in torque. So that's why I went with the stage 2 tune, just so I can, you know, get that responsive, fun, playful torque where I need it. It has the flash, it has the exhaust, it has the rear sets. I did order a tail tidy, but it was the wrong one. So what I did was I just cut that big long stock off of the stock tail tidy area. This thing is the stock. This is the whole stock unit, but normally it's out here. You know, it's way out here at the end of that long pole. So I just removed the pole and then I bolted it directly to the bike. So in the meantime, this is how I'm running it until my actual tail tidy comes in. But what do you think? Does that look okay like that? Because if that looks okay like that, I think I might just leave well enough alone and run it like this. I mean, I love those big red reflectors. Aren't those cool? But I mean, it's doing the job, right? And it does leave a big hole underneath there. Your key actually, to get your seat off on this bike, you actually access the key under the seat right here. So I had to build like a lid. You see that this is part of an old dirt bike fender, and I cut it out to fit, and I can just kind of swivel it out of the way to get to the key. And then that way I can access the key. It's up in there, hopefully you can see. It's up in there above the wire somewhere. And the reason I put this here is not just to cover up the keyhole, but to cover up the rest of the kind of gap that's in there from pulling out the stock parts to make it fit better. So I kind of improvised this, and the goal is to have it not only, well, really the goal is to have it protect the wiring and stuff in here from water, because water will be getting slung up, and this will hopefully block it from getting up into the tail section. So I improvised that myself. Should have been an engineer, I know, but missed my calling. Stay in school, folks, and study and take it serious. I also, one other thing I did was I adjusted my forks. You can see that there, that little purple mark. That is where the stock fork height was. You can see it better here. That little purple mark is where the fork tube actually was stock. And I slid the fork tube up into the triples about 3 millimeters. What that did was give me a lot more feedback on the front end when you're turning in. It makes it feel a lot more responsive. One of the complaints about this bike, the 2023, I think 21 through 23, is that it feels vague up front. The front turn in feels vague. It feels very tall. A lot of these guys will replace the risers. As you can see here, these risers are really long. They're like, I don't know, 4 inches long. So a lot of guys will replace these risers with FJR risers, which are a couple inches shorter. It brings the bars down some, but I didn't necessarily need that. I just needed the front end to feel like it was in contact with the ground the right way. And so I found that this adjustment, this one little adjustment, really helped a lot with that. And I think I fixed my feedback problem with the front end on this bike. Now, if you're looking at a 2024, just know that the 2024 is totally redesigned from this bike. The front end sits much lower. The risers on the stock bike are very short, and you actually feel like you're more on a street fighter type of bike than this one. This 21 through 23 model, it's very high up in the front. It almost feels like you're riding an adventure bike if you closed your eyes. A very fast, fun adventure bike. So I kind of like that feeling. I had a Versys 650 for like 10 years, and that bike was, you know, it was tall in the front, but it was just such a fun bike to ride in the twisties, and it was just so much fun. I wish I wouldn't have sold that bike, but I did, and this kind of reminds me of it, the way it sits. So that's a list of the things I've done. It came with the crash protection. I'm going to be buying some brake pads for it. The APFA brake pads, which are like more of a racing type pad to give the front end, the front brakes a little more bite. The front brakes on this are not great. The rear brakes on this are great. So I don't know why the rear brakes feel so good and the fronts feel so kind of resistant to slowing you down, but I heard that when you change the pads, that fixes that problem. So I'm going to do that rather than buy braided lines and all that, which this does not come with, and at a cost of a couple $300. I'm just going to change my pads and, you know, let that suffice. This is not a race bike. It is a street bike. This race exhaust, I am running it with the DB Killer in it, and I'll let you get a listen. Let's fire it up. Yes, we're in neutral. This is with the DB Killer in the exhaust. It still has a nice deep bassy kind of sound to it. The engine's warm. Of course, I rode here, so this bike is nice and hot. I think that sounds great. I think that sounds great with the DB Killer in. Unlike most DB Killers where you have like a kind of an air sound coming out from around it, like, you know, you clearly have something stuck in the tip of the exhaust. This is not like that. The exhaust, this end cap piece sits, it kind of slides into that can. This piece slides into that can in there, and the silencer, the DB killer, actually slides into this canister and goes to about here. And it just narrows the opening just ever so slightly and kind of plugs around the outside. But like I said, the difference is minimal to sound. So, and it had no difference in power. As a matter of fact, I just felt like it ran better with it in. So anyway, that's what I've done with the MT09 SP so far. It's got about 4,000 miles on it. I think I've put about 1,500 miles on this bike, and I am really enjoying what I've done with it here. The last thing I'm waiting for is the stage 2 lid from DNA, and that just simply, I lift up the tank, take the top of the airbox off, and put this new lid on in place of the top of the airbox, and it's like the whole lid is a filter. So, oh, and one other thing, I did buy a steering damper, a stabilizer from Matrix, and I had it mounted right here. It went across here. I hated it. I hated the way it felt. Even on the lightest input from the steering dampener, turned down to its lightest setting to where it shouldn't be doing anything, it still made the bike feel like kind of sluggish and weird for turn in. And I didn't enjoy it at all. I think the part of what makes this bike so fun is it's like lively, and it's eager to turn, and it's fun, and it's peppy, and it's crispy. And when you put that steering dampener on there, it's like it slows all that down, and it makes it feel just much too deliberate and kind of boring. So I just knew instantly that was not something that this bike needed. They said this bike should have a steering dampener on it, but I've never felt the front end do anything weird. And I've had this thing up to 140 miles an hour, and I haven't felt anything weird or, anything shaky or sketchy. So I pulled it off, man. So depending on how you ride, I don't really think you should make it a priority to get a steering damper. It really feels a lot better without it. So that's it. Oh, and lastly, I cut my windscreen down here. This windscreen came with the bike, but it was like way up here. It was like this tall. So I just freehand cut it with a saw. You could see the edge. It's rough. I cut it with a hand saw, and I had some of this from another fairing job I did. It just kind of goes over and cleans up the edge of the cut. And yeah. And there it is. Now it's much lower, gives me a nice clean look up front, and it doesn't kick up a bunch of dirty air. You know, if you crouch down real low, you'd be protected, but otherwise you're just getting a lot of wind buffeting from the top of that tall screen. As it goes over the top of it, it hits you in the chin and in the face and in the shoulders, and that's not fun. I find the screen either needs to be giant to where it's like completely covering you, which looks ridiculous on a bike like this, or it needs to be gone, because in the middle is just annoying. So, and that is it. That is all I have done with the MT09 SP so far, guys. I know I said I wasn't going to do any videos for a while, and this one is a pretty easy one. I'm just gonna throw this up as an update, and I will be getting back into filming, but honestly, I just don't have any footage. I haven't been riding. My daughter has been getting settled in college, and that has taken quite a tremendous amount of time and effort on my part. So, she's there, she's in college, she's moved into her dorms, and I can finally get back to like riding my bike again and filming and getting out with friends to ride and get footage. So, look for some new footage coming from your boy soon. I'll probably be at the Dragon soon, and just, all the normal stuff, but priorities, and my family comes first. And now that they're taken care of, I can play. So thanks for hanging in there with me. Ant-Man Moto, like, subscribe. If you like motorcycle content riding stuff. I don't do a whole lot of fancy schmancy anything. I just ride the bike and with like-minded, enthusiasts. So if that's you, come along, hang out, and I will see you on the next one here at Ant-Man Moto. Take care of each other, but more importantly, take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody. So take care of yourself. See you on the next one.